Irene's there. I understand. And Karen, I think I heard your voice.
Yes, I am here.
Okay, great. Thanks, Karen. Okay, so you're ready. We're ready. Let's go with it. 81 Pierrepont Street and 35 Love Lane in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District. The applications to excavate the rear yard of 81 Pierrepont and rear yard at cellar at 35 Love Lane to create a new subgrade interior, including a new lot line window and a new what do they have here, opening at the east or secondary facade facing the passageway, and to make up mainly windows and doors in the front and rear facade at 35 Love Lane in the same areas as a new opening. Okay,
and
go
Michael,
ahead, whoever is the presenter.
Michael, before you start, since we were being somewhat familiar with each other while waiting for the committee to make quorum, I just want to announce that we've started recording the meeting, so we'll all tighten it up a little bit. And any board members who have the ability to show their faces while they're on whatever device they're on, please do so in the spirit of the New York State Open Meetings Law. Thanks.
And I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Oh, there's that.
Okay, so all right, and I'll second this motion. I guess there's any objection? If there are no objections, let's proceed. Again, Irene is there as co-chair. Our great secretary, Karen Johnson, is on, and I'm Carlton Gordon. So let's, the presenter for Pierrepont and Love, go right ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm Michael Ingui from Baxtingwe Architects. Also on is Mark Fabris, who's a project manager working on this project. I'll share my.
One thing I just want to throw out. Okay, thank you. Because I had so much trouble logging out. There was one thing I just wanted to make sure before when you're as you're proceeding. Since you're doing excavation, that may affect your neighbors, residential, commercial, people, property owners. I just want to make sure if you have notified your neighbors or the people around that at Pierrepont and Love Lane that you're going to be doing excavation work. I think that's the top thing I have before we proceed with anything else.
Great. Yeah, no, I agree with you. So the way we start all projects, excavation or no excavation, landmarks and no landmarks, we actually meet with both neighbors on both sides. In this case, we have a third side, which is the back. So we've met with or spoken to both the neighbor next to 81 Pierrepont, 35 Love Lane, and there's a large condo co-op building to the right. In several cases, we've already been in touch with their engineer, and we're going to be going to the condo board, I think, on Monday to talk to them a little bit more. So we've already been in contact with them, and we've already met with the Brooklyn Heights Association.
I'm glad to hear that. Yes, I understand. Judy Stanton is going to be on with us. I don't have the list of names in front of me, but it's she said she would be here, and she will also present the results.
Oh, so she's on. She's on.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Presenter.
Great, thanks. And hang on, I think I may have closed that screen. Hang on one second. You should be seeing the front page of the drawing set right now.
It's up.
Great. So just to familiarize kind of what the property is, you've got 81 Pierrepont, which is a relatively newly renovated townhouse that's on Pierrepont. Here's the front stoop. There's a rear 2-story addition here. And here's the rear yard. And then you have Love Lane behind it with the carriage house. And what we're planning to do is do excavation both in the yard below this addition and below Love Lane. We're also renovating Love Lane. So just some pictures of what we're looking at. Here's the carriage house on Love Lane. The front of the house, you can see there's actually a sister house. Both of these buildings have lived multiple lives. They've been renovated at least 3 or 4 times. In one case, they were renovated and the entire facade was renovated. Different owners, but they must have made a deal with the contractor at the time. The rear of the house is quite interesting. We have better pictures kind of coming up. But the rear facade of the carriage house has some interesting details on it. And then what you can see in the bottom right is the alleyway that's next to us. We have better pictures of all this coming up. So a few close-up pictures of the rear facade of that carriage house. As you can see, there was a rose window to the left of this rose window. There are openings that have been closed up at multiple points. There's a bathroom window that was here where there's no longer a bathroom. This is in fact a double height space now. So this has had a lot of work done to it, as has the carriage house next to it. You can see the carriage house next to it actually has some openings in these arches already and has a large deck. Rear facade of 81 Pierrepont. Besides the fact that when we replace this, we're going to wind up with a bluestone rear yard. The hope is that the rear yard does not look dissimilar to this fence, brick wall with bluestone, but we'll be excavating below this, and I'll talk about that in a second. Here's that alleyway again that I described. That's next to both buildings, 81 Pierrepont, 35 Love Lane. It mentions a lot line window that we're going to be installing. There are already a bunch of lot line windows in 81, and we're going to be putting another one in right over here. It'll be frosted glass. It'll be security glass. You can see it both here and there. It's visible from the street if you look down into the alley. Other things that we're proposing right now, this has been left as the masonry wall below the fence has been left as just kind of an exposed concrete block, not really well done. So we're going to wind up coating that and coating this whole wall to make it just look a little bit more finished for the folks at the condo and co-op. Some work that we plan to do on the facade of Love Lane. We plan to replace the limestone lintel. It's cracked in a number of locations. And we plan to do new windows and doors. This is a Marvin double hung or a similar company. New garage door. The garage door that's currently there is not operable. They're actually not using it as a garage. They're using it as an art studio. And we'll be replacing the windows and doors on both these sides to match a similar arrangement that was here, but at one point the brick was removed and we're not reinstalling it. The rear facade, you can see to the left, the before, where you can see that rose window, which is really kind of at knee height. It's kind of in an interesting and weird location. The right side shows the proposed where we're going to be putting some windows in those arches with a new door. We're actually narrowing this opening and kind of aligning it with the window above. You can see the house next door has done something similar. And then this just shows that, the bluestone that we'll be using. And if you don't mind, I'm going to jump to the section and then come back to all this because I think the section describes what we're doing better than everything else does. So right now, this is 81 Pierrepont. This is 35 Love Lane. 81 Pierrepont has a cellar space already that goes partially under the 2-story addition. Love Lane does not have a cellar. And what we're doing is we're connecting the two via digging out a cellar. There's no change to the yard arrangement or to anything that's visible, hopefully, even when we're done, except for that window that we're adding in. but we are going to wind up connecting them through the cellar space. We're going to be continuing the dig out at the level of the existing cellar all the way through. And we are going to wind up putting a swimming pool in that connection. So I think this kind of describes it better than all the other images. We're also going to be wind up doing a lot of interior work to this carriage house. And we're going to be installing air conditioning units that won't be able to be seen from anywhere. I'm going to go to the plan now, if you don't mind. So here's the plan of that yard. You can see here's 81 Pierrepont, the yard, Love Lane. Here's where the car would pull in. And then here's the floor below grade where we're making that connection. So this is a newly dug out connection that'll allow us to walk through. There'll be a stair that goes up and out to the street or into the garage. And there's a room underneath this as well. Just some more interior elevations. Just to go into what the facade looks like and what's visible, this is what that side facade looks like now. You can see there's some existing lot line windows there already. You can see the unfinished kind of concrete block, the fence that doesn't continue. And what we're proposing is to continue this wall, finish it cleanly, continue that fence, finish it cleanly, and you could see this new window being proposed. And that's the presentation. I mean, I can go into anything in more detail, but maybe it's better if you have questions.
Okay, thank you. Let me hear from Judy to see what you think, and then we'll take from all the other committee members. But let's, Judy, if you're there, the floor or the internet is yours. Any luck on that? Hello? Am I being heard?
Maybe she has to release her microphone.
Are you unmuting me, please, Carlton? Whoever's in charge.
Yeah, I can't. I'm on a lousy cell phone, but yeah, I can hear you now, Judy.
Okay, good. All right, our committee did review this at some length, really. We did, and even though the excavation is frightening, everybody felt that Baxtingui has a good team in place. The adjoining neighbors have engineers, and it's a good. So we're satisfied that they will do that very carefully, and it'll be very well monitored. As for the changes to the rear facade, most people on the committee thought that it's a little busy, quite a lot of new windows being added, but their main request of the team, and I don't know if you've done this yet, Michael, was to tell the story of the changes to the carriage houses more clearly in their presentations. I mean, obviously they've been altered, but we've done a lot of tax photo research, and Jeremy Lexton has pretty much researched every single building in the Brooklyn Heights Historic District, and he's done a lot of work on these properties. And so we think that it's the story of the changes to the rear carriage houses should be told more clearly so that commissioners can better evaluate whether or not all these windows is appropriate in this application. These are unusual, the arches in the back, that's unusual for carriage houses, at least we think so. And so we wanted to see a more clearly presented history of alterations to the back, which can be done a little more thoroughly with the way they're using the additional tax photos. I think that's what Jeremy concluded.
Yeah, since we, can I answer or should I wait? Up to you guys.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, since we met with the Brooklyn Heights Association, we've added the elevation of the building next to us. We didn't have this during that presentation, and it didn't show that openings had already been kind of made in a similar way to the house to the left. And I think that's what Jeremy was describing. And it didn't have close-up images of the doors. and how actually there's new brick in a number of locations above. You can kind of see this rose window, which I think I can zoom in. Yeah, so as right above the rose window, you can actually see there was a door here once. There was another rose window there. There used to be a window where there's now a vent. So we didn't have a lot of that in our presentation with the Brooklyn Heights Association. So we've added that. And then at the front facade, we've actually changed this, Judy, thanks to the presentation. In fact, actually, I think Jeremy, I think he actually provided one of these photos. I think the middle one. This kind of shows kind of what's happened to the houses since, where this was taken in the late 50s. This was taken, I think, in the late 70s. You can see the brick is still there, and then you can see it was removed at some point when they just redid the facade. In fact, you can see it didn't, at that point, it didn't have a lintel and didn't even have red brick. So someone did quite a bit of work to both of these. And so what we're proposing is to keep the openings that they've created, restore that limestone lintel, and kind of move from there.
Okay, you're talking about the front now, right?
Yeah, I went from back to front. Sorry, Judy.
Okay, all right.
But Judy, overall, I guess the Brooklyn Heights Association
Yes,
could
Yes.
live with the application.
yes.
Okay. Any other committee members or board members?
Yes, John Do. Love Lane is a cul-de-sac. Is it still a cul-de-sac?
Love Lane goes
No.
through.
No, it's a through street, John. It goes behind CBS. It goes through to Henry.
It goes through to Henry.
Yeah, the carriage, I know what you're thinking of. The cul-de-sac is College Place.
College Place.
When you enter Love Lane from Hicks.
Yeah, that's correct.
There's a cul-de-sac of, I don't know how many yards in from Hicks Street, and that is a cul-de-sac.
So the College Place had a parking facility at one point, Judy. Is that
Yes.
remaining?
No, that was converted to condos.
Oh,
Oh, that was the old garage?
Yes.
No, because I remember the garage over by Love Lane. So that's now a condo. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
I think we saw that.
All
We
now-
saw that presentation.
Yeah. Huh. Time flies. All right. Okay. Any other committee members?
I have a question. I have a question about the lot line window you're adding. I'm assuming that is at the pool. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I see in your diagram or your drawing, you're showing it as operable, but I guess
it shouldn't be. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my questions. So
We'll fix it.
Of course, but it did lead me to another question, which is about the ventilation and exhaust for the pool. And I don't know, I know it's not under the purview of LPC, but can you just quickly describe how that's going to be vented since these are not operable windows?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, pools need, I mean, positive and negative to having an indoor pool. Positive is it's fun to use. The negative is it requires a lot of constant ventilation. They create constant moisture that, in some cases, if you're smart about it, you can kind of reuse in the winter for humidity. But for the most part, it needs kind of constant flow both in the water and in the air. The unit that we're putting is going to actually be underground. That does that ventilation. It'll be kind of in the pool area, and the vent for it is going to be right here. And actually, by the time it's vented, it provides very little moisture or air or fumes. It's actually pretty heavily filtered. It's also a very low velocity fan, which is why they didn't mind it kind of going out right into the yard. It doesn't blow out a lot of, it's not like a kitchen exhaust.
Doctor, we had that same question and we were satisfied with the answer.
Okay, great. May I have a follow-up question, which is about the excavation? I know that LPC doesn't have purview really over how construction is staged, but I'm wondering if you can talk about your approach to excavating beneath, because it is quite scary when you've got two existing buildings and you're excavating below their existing foundation. But can you just talk about that quickly?
Yeah. So there's actually a couple of different conditions that we're dealing with. Oops. with a couple of different conditions that we're dealing with here. And then the important piece is, in order to be a contractor that works on one of our townhouses, you have to have already done what we're doing. So anybody who's going to, actually, we already know what the contractor is for this, and he's done excavation before. So whoever would work with us has already done excavation like this. It's done by hand. I mean, sometimes they'll bring in a very small machine to help lift dirt in the center, but it's done by hand in 5-gallon bucket. So it's actually a relatively slow process in New York City. And so what we have here is we have a 2-story addition in this area. Then we have a yard wall right here. And then we have a 2-story carriage house here. Both these will be handled in a similar way where we're going to wind up underpinning the walls, where this will get 1, 2, 3 underpins done at completely separate times. And same with this. This will actually probably get 8 underpins done, like where one here and 1 there, and then 2, when they set. So it's a relatively slow process. And as the excavation occurs, they're constantly pinning those walls to make sure that everything's stable. When underpinning's done this slowly and carefully, I mean, nobody around you should know you're even doing it besides the dirt removal, which is annoying. Again, it's different when you're using big equipment like in the city or in larger buildings where you've got enough of a lot and a lot of space to bring a bobcat in. Everybody will know you're there. But in this case, for better or worse, it's done with a lot of 5-gallon buckets.
Anything else, Daughtry?
Not for me.
Okay. Any other committee members have any?
Can you ask, first of all, how old is that building?
The carriage house itself?
Yes.
Mark, you have to unmute yourself and correct me when I say this, but I believe it's 1850s.
Okay.
Jeremy said 1853, Michael.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Okay. And my only question for you is if you can ask the applicant if they could ask the owner if there can be a public pool in the summertime?
It's a good idea. Yeah.
We could use one.
Motion to approve applicant.
Okay. All right. Anybody else seconding?
Sure.
I'll
Second.
second. Oh,
Okay. Any questions on the motion? Problems? If not, I guess, Rob, I guess you'll have to do the roll call.
I'd be happy to, Mr. Gordon, and I will do it in alphabetical order because that's the order that
Okay.
show up on the participant panel.
Sure, however.
Mr. Washington,
Mr. Paris, I'm going to just abstain because I was late to getting on with technical difficulties.
understood. Mr. Howell,
Like Mr. Washington, I'm going to abstain because I was late.
thank you. Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Ms. Karstarfin,
yes.
Mr. Augustus,
Yes.
Ms. Blount,
I'm sorry, my camera, I can't get on with the camera, but I apologize. I'll fix that next time.
and so you are abstaining?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Janner,
Yes.
Mr. Dew,
Yes.
Ms. Stanton,
Yes.
and Ms. Johnson.
Yes.
No abstention, no opposition, Mr. Gordon, and a small number of abstentions. The motion passes.
What's that, 8? What was that, 7 or 8? I lost count.
I will give you the number in a second.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much. But its motion passes. And we'll just wait for when Rob gets me the count, and we'll move on. In the meanwhile, we have a presentation, information presentation for 98 3rd Avenue, which is a rezoning 20033 ZMK and 200336 ZRK. It's just an informational. It's my understanding it's at 98 3rd Avenue, right by Bergen Street, sort of like on the border, if you want to think of it, between downtown Brooklyn and Boerum Hill.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah? Hello, anybody?
Yes, before we give the pineapple to Mr. Palatnik, I'll tell you, Mr. Gordon, that the vote was 7 in favor, none opposed, 3 abstentions, with Mr. Dew moving the motion and Ms. Stanton seconding. And Eric Palatnik is the attorney for Adam Wolf, who is the applicant. They're both on the call, and they are ready to proceed.
Okay. How many in favor on the Pierrepont lot again? I missed that.
7?
7? Okay, 703. Okay, thanks a lot, Rob. Okay, 98 3rd Avenue, the internet's yours.
Hello, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Eric Palatnik. I'm the attorney representing Bill Wolf Petroleum. With us here today is Adam Wolf of Bill Wolf Petroleum and his architect, Brian Newman of Newman Architects. And the gentleman named Austin Corey is our colleague who is flipping the screen. We're here today in an informational basis to ask you for your permission to rezone the block front between Bergen and Wyckoff on 3rd Avenue to an R7D zoning district. That would be analogous to the R7A district that's all around it and to the Wyckoff Gardens development that you can see in the backdrop and you're all familiar with.
This is a gas station that's currently a gas station.
It's currently a Shell gas station. It's 5,000 square feet. Before I go even further, I just want to refresh your memory. If any of this feels like deja vu all over again, it's because your board heard this application in June of 2015 when it was born and brought to you as a variance to the Board of Standards and Appeals. It was not successful at the Board of Standards and Appeals in the sense that it didn't meet, or they felt it didn't meet, the hardship requirements and the financial burden that goes along with that. So because it didn't meet the hardship requirements of a variance, we withdrew that application and we've filed a rezoning for the block front. And I'll go through that in a moment with you and show you everything. So if we can click to the next screen, Austin. And Austin, as a matter of fact, if you can click to the screen that has about 3 or 4, 5 in, it's got all the words on it. It's got a picture with all the words. It describes all the buildings. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There you go. Okay. So hopefully everybody can see the screen here, what's on now. You have an image that should refresh everybody's memory of what's going on in the area and what's happening around us. The site is depicted in the middle, obviously, with the word site on it. Behind us, the 2-story factory building is Ulano Corporation. That is not a part of the rezoning. The area that is a part of the middle where it says project area. The far left of the block front that's within the project area on Wyckoff was just recently purchased, or a couple of years ago, by a doctor who I believe has a fertility clinic in that building, and he just renovated that. The right side of the block is our property. The properties in between are leased by Ulano from the city, and they're owned by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. So Austin, and actually one more thing before you click, Austin, I wanted to point out in this slide the 2 residential buildings which are analogous in scale to what we're asking permission for. One is on the corner of Bergen and 3rd, which is shown marked there as 8-story residential building. And you can see if you go to the next corner on Wyckoff and 3rd, again, you have an 8-story residential building. Those residential buildings which are surrounding us all sprung up from the R7A Boerum Hill rezoning, which took place many years ago at this point. Austin, if you can just keep clicking now to the pictures. Or actually, go back one screen. The tax map is helpful.
Okay.
Okay, so this gives everybody an idea. This slide should show everybody very clearly what we're asking you permission to do. Obviously, the shaded area in the middle that says R7D is the area that will be rezoned. You could see our lot is outlined there in red. On the left side of the tax lots, you can see an area that's marked R6B. That's existing already. You probably didn't pay attention to it before, and I'll call it out as we move through more maps and whatnot, but that existing R6B is there. But what's important to note is that city planning asked us to clean up that map. So if you look where the R6B intersects with the R7D on Wyckoff, you'll see that portion in the middle where the dotted line goes around. That's pushing the R6B forward a little bit and shortening the distance there so that it's consistent with the R7D district. So it's just a little bit of cleaning up in the map that city planning asked us to do. You can go to the next slide, please, Austin. On the top left, you can see the site in all of its splendid glory. In the lower left, you could see the site, not really the site, just the tip of it, but more importantly, you can see the 8-story residential building across the street, so you can get a sense for the scale. And Austin, if you just sort of click through these slides, it's okay. You don't have to spend that much time. I think everybody has been or seen the block front. It's pretty much what I just described, with the 21-story Wyckoff Gardens behind you and the 8-story residential buildings, and then the factory behind us. If you can just stop, Austin, right, I think there is a great shot to stop on for a second. Again, that just gives you the scale. The top slide to the left gives you the side of the block front where the doctor just finished renovating, or at the time of the photo, the fertility clinic I mentioned. So that's on the corner of 3rd and Wyckoff, and you can see Wyckoff Gardens on the left side. That's also Wyckoff Gardens, of course, depicted on the lower left. And the top right is the building that's catty corner across the street from that. And again, just showing you the scale of what's going on, or what you know better than we do. Austin, you can keep clicking now, I think, to the plans to get the, you can go right to the plans. That'd be great. Keep going, keep going. I'll go back one, go to the zoning map, actually, please. There you go. Okay, so just so everybody could be clear again on what we are asking you to vote on, or not to vote, but at least to get familiar with. We are not yet filed with city planning. We're not yet certified, excuse me. We have a draft application pending. I should have been clear about that at the beginning. So we hope to be certified in the next couple of months, we hope. 2, 3 months, 4 months. But in that respect, the map you see in front of you is the map we're going to ask them to certify. And that's why we're coming to you ahead of time. That map shows you what I just showed you on the tax map, and just shows it to you in the form of a zoning map. The left-hand side is existing. The right-hand side is proposed. The left-hand side, you can see the R6B I mentioned before in the middle of the block there. That's existing. We're not messing with that except to fix the edges, as I mentioned a moment ago. So that's part of the action. You'll see the word R6B, but the bulk of the action is to allow for the R7D over the block front. You'll notice there prominently are the letters and words R7A and R6A all around us. So I think that helps support our request. Next slide, please, Austin, to the plans. This is the building you've seen before. Nothing has changed. There was a vote of 36 in favor 5 years ago. Nothing has changed on the plan since then. It's the same building. It's an 8-story building. It's 85 feet tall. It's proposed to include 24 units. Of those 24 units, either 6 of them will be affordable if it's at a 25%. If it's option 1 of the MIH program, or it will include 8 affordable units of the 24 if the program is option 2 of the MIH. And that's, of course, for you and the councilman to decide. And that's, of course, something that's different than the variance request to the Board of Standards and Appeals, is there was no affordable component when we brought the application to the Board of Standards and Appeals. So when we withdrew that and we came to city planning, we come to you and to city planning with the knowledge that we will be providing affordable housing, and that was not proposed to begin with in the original incarnation that you voted to support, and it is now. The next slide, please, Austin. Next slide. This is just the statistics that I just mentioned. Next slide, please, to get the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. I know this is all boring stuff. This starts to get you to some of the exciting stuff. The screen, I'm just trying to get it zoomed in a little bit. This shows you the site plan. It gives you a pretty good image of what's going to be going on the property. It shows you where the setbacks are. The entrance is going to be on the side street. It's going to be the residential entrance will be there, and the commercial will be on 3rd Avenue. So Bergen will have the residential entrance where the lobby will be, and the commercial will front on 3rd, which is the longer part of the plan that you're seeing in front of you. Next slide, please, Austin. This just gives you the cellar level. It's not very exciting. It's your typical cellar, storage, recreation space, student storage space, etc. Here you can see the retail space, which I spoke about a moment ago. It's about 3,000 square feet of retail. The rezoning would include a C2 overlay, a C24 overlay. The residential lobby you can see there is on the Bergen Street side. Next slide, please. Here you can start to see the layout of the building as it goes up. It notches out in the back and L's around that's where the light wells, the rear yard, so to speak, is. So you can have the units that'll front on 3rd, and you'll also have windows that go out against the back there. So if you can please go on and look to the next slide, please. This shows you, the next slide shows you the 3rd through the 6th floor. You should be at 3rd through 6th floor. Again, it's showing you the same configuration from the 3rd through the 6th. And I can't really tell on the screen that I'm on. You appear to be now on the 7th floor plan. And the 7th floor plan shows you where it starts to set back. You can go forward again. Are you on the 7th? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you scroll a couple of pages forward, this gives you an image of what the building looks like. It shows you all of the setbacks. This is giving you an image of the building as if you're standing on 3rd Avenue. So this is what you would see on 3rd Avenue. It's very similar in its outline to what's across the street. Very similar. I can't say that Brian's done anything that's much different than what's around. The site doesn't give him much room to. So, but he's using very nice materials, and he's on the call, and he'll be happy to talk about his facing materials that he's planning on using. And the remainder of the screens are basically just reiterations of what we just showed you. Austin, I think if you go to the end, it's got a beautiful rendering at the end, or it should.
And this is not I'll underline, in the Boerum Hill Historic District.
No, it is not.
Yeah, it's not. Okay.
It is not. That's the conclusion of our presentation. Thank you for giving me so much time.
Okay, thank you. Does any of the committee members, board members have any questions? If not, then thank you very much for 98 3rd Avenue. Obviously,
I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, Daughtry. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed that the surrounding rezonings were like R6, R6B, and you're going for R7. What is the distinction of why you chose the 7 as opposed to the 6?
Actually, it's not. I'm not being argumentative. I'm just correcting you. And Austin, if you go back to the zoning change map, which is at the start of the plans, it's right before page 1 of the plans. That map will show you that around us across the street is in fact R7A. So if you could see clearly, all of 3rd Avenue around us is in fact mapped already as R7A. It stopped at our site, the rezoning, because 10 years ago, I think city planning was of the mindset that Adam Wolf was making good use of the property, and they didn't realize that he wasn't, and they stopped the line there. I think that if we would have been involved in the discussions 10 years ago when that R7A was created, that Adam was online, he would have gladly been involved in that process. So I think he missed the boat in that action, and we're simply seeking to really gain access to that now. The difference of the A versus the D, there is a slight increase in floor area from the A to the D, but that really accounts for the affordable housing that's now being created that the A doesn't have the same requirement of.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon, I believe that Mr. Dew has a question about the affordable housing, and I will follow whenever the committee members are done.
Okay, go ahead, John.
And you're muted.
If I may, on behalf of Mr. Dew, Eric, can you discuss the affordable housing number of units or percentages, what the percentage of the AMI would be at?
I'd be happy to.
Mr. Dew is unmuted now.
Ah, great, thank you.
Okay, yes, Rob, you did get it. I would also ask, in addition to Mr. Paris's comments, that you look towards the affordable rents in that relative community, not necessarily what the city publishes for AMI, which is an area-wide number that doesn't apply to most of the communities in community district 2. So that you would look at affordable rents in the Borum Hill community that surrounds this development.
We could certainly take a look at that. Let me give you some of the numbers so you can understand what they are. I do have them laid out, and I could send them to the board tomorrow so you could study them at your leisure. There are two different scenarios which we could be presenting. One provides a deeper level of affordability. That's option one. And option one creates a total of 6 affordable units. And of those 6 affordable units, 2 of them are 1-bedrooms, and they're at 60% AMI, and they're $1,200 a month. One is a 2-bedroom at 60% at $1,400. One is a 2-bedroom at 40%, which I think is what you're speaking about, probably, because a 1-bedroom at 40% is $773 a month, and a 2-bedroom at 40% is $943 a month, which is a good deal in New York, of course.
Yeah.
And a 1-bedroom it includes a 1-bedroom at 100%, which is $1,711. So that's 6 units out of 24 in that scenario. That's option one, and that wasn't here years ago when we made the presentation. The other option is option two, which you're probably not going to enjoy hearing, but I'll lay it out, which is option two is 80% AMI. That creates a total of 24 units, but instead of 6 of them affordable, 8 are affordable. So it's not as cheap though. So you're not as cheap, or not as, I shouldn't say it's cheap. It's not as well priced as the deeper affordability, but there's more units. There's 2 more units, so more people get to share them. In that sense, you got 2 of them are 1-bedrooms at 80% AMI, which is $1,300 a month. One is a 2-bedroom at 80%, which is $1,600. 2 are a 1-bedroom at 60%, which is $1,200. One is a 2-bedroom at 60%, which is $1,400, and 2 1-bedrooms at $1,700. So the numbers go up in what I just said a second ago. I mean, I know I rattled off numbers quick, but just to boil it down very simple, you're going from, in option one, a 1-bedroom, and the cheapest is $773, to option two, the cheapest for a 1-bedroom is 1,300. So you're almost doubling it for a 1-bedroom in the 2 scenarios. So option 1 is probably something that we could talk about, and I think would achieve the goals of whatever he's trying to get at. It is a small development; it's not that big, so there's not much meat. There's not that much meat on the bones, but I think we could accommodate your request.
And I want to remind I'm sorry, John. I want to remind the committee that the local council member has a great deal of input into which option. Yeah. So if the committee has a preference between those 2 options, when this comes before them as a certified application, they should remember that they have some input into that decision.
Okay, well, Mr. Paris, as we go forward, everything has to have a tinge of pandemic associated with it. There's a lot of homelessness and a lot of worklessness. So we have to certainly lean towards whatever's going to be most affordable for the greatest number of people. That's a balance, but it's a thought.
Empathy, John, I think is what you're saying, and there has to be a lot of it these days. And the developer that's on the phone, Adam Wolf, is committed to creating something that he could work with the community. He'll engage with you during the process. He'll engage with you right now. He'll engage with you as it's being created. So this is not a one-off conversation that he's involved with, and we're happy to continue with it.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Eric,
I'll add. Yeah, I just wanted to add as I used to live on Atlantic by 3rd, and you do have a real, I won't say it's a mix, but okay, as you go, I guess, southbound on 3rd Avenue, yes, you do have the housing projects and so on, which are moderate to lower income. But at the same time, only a couple of blocks away, you do have higher incomes that are all scattered along Dean, Bergen, Atlantic, State, Pacific, right in there. The AMIs in that area is going to be very, it kind of skews everything, but I agree. I think we should look at everything to try to get the most that we can to help people to help affordable housing. And if there are any other comments or questions?
Mr. Gordon, board member Latrell Mosso had the question about whether there are any set-asides within the MIH program. In particular, she was asking if some units are set aside for people with disabilities.
It's Eric Palatnik.
I do know, but go ahead. Yeah.
It's Eric Palatnik. We don't create that, regulate that answer to that question, unfortunately. That's HPD in their work. I don't believe there's a set aside in the program for that for people with disabilities. But having said that, obviously the building will be designed in an ADA compliant, and we welcome everybody in the building. But I don't think there's a specific call out or preference for people with disabilities.
Thank you. And then since we've talked about a future ULURP application, do you have a tentative sense of when that might be certified?
We're hoping in the next 2 to 3 to 4 months, as I said earlier. We're really, a lot of our paperwork has been in. We've been working with the city for the last 1.5 years, 2 years. They've been fantastic. We're almost at the end of the process with the paperwork. So that's why we sent this to you, to familiarize you with it, so we don't shock you or surprise you when we come back when it is certified.
We do appreciate no shocks.
Yeah, I figure these days especially, right?
Yes. All right. If there are no other, I am going to move on now over to our next item, which is the community forum, which is open to the public, other than committee members and board members. And is there anybody from, I guess Rob, you'll have to tell me if there is anybody from the community who wishes to participate?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Carlton, neither on camera or in the participant panel.
Okay, thank you, Rob. All right, next is the approval of the minutes for last month. This is September, and I thank Karen Johnson for her hard work in pulling together and with these minutes. I have no qualms. I looked through the minutes and looked fine to me. Is there any members of the committee that have anything they want to add on the minutes or any corrections?
So move for approval.
Well, I'll just take it as if there are no objections, we'll just take it as by the committee. I've heard no objections, so we'll take that as approval by the committee, and we'll move on to our next item, which is the chair's report. I have a couple of things just want to throw out at you. First thing is that I came across a couple of items in the New York Times that I thought would be of interest. They did a thing called the post-pandemic sales in new developments, and they listed downtown Brooklyn, 114 units that are listed that they found on the New York Times, 24 up for sale, and the median price of the units is $1,050,000. So there still seems to be some steam in that. And there was another article in another part of the Times for September 27th of this year. The title was "Brooklyn Experiences a Surge in Home Sales," and they said specifically that there was a surge in downtown Brooklyn. So there still seems to be, again, at least from reports that I'm reading, that there still seems to be interest even in this time of the pandemic, of people trying to get properties in our area. So we can just bear that in mind. I'll just also again let people know in our November meeting we have a few highlights. I just want to give a couple of the highlights that we have. It's going to be a busy meeting in November, so just be ready for that. We're going to get a ULURP for 69 Adams Street. We also have more than a presentation. We're going to have a request from city planning for the zoning for the flood resiliency. Some of you may remember it was a rainy day when they came to us over at Brooklyn Law School dormitory, and they asked, they gave us a presentation about the coastal, flood resiliency. This time they're asking for approval. There was also a request to do a thing on Governor's Island, but Rob and Karen and I have been talking about it over on our email, and we're going to we think because we're going to have also the usual LPC applications, that we're going to have such a large meeting. We're going to set aside any discussion on having a presentation on Governor's Island, and leave that to the side for the time being. And if people are interested, they can join in on a presentation of Governor's Island that would be made to Manhattan Community Board 1. My last thing I had here, and I guess she's not, is Elizabeth Ginsburg in our, she's not on this meeting, I guess. She's not.
I guess she is.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
I'm on.
okay. Hi. What I've wanted to do, and I've wanted to do it for the longest time, is because we never really had a chance to really introduce you. This is probably the best I can do. So I'll give you a minute of my time, a minute or two of my time, for you to introduce yourself to the committee. Even though you've been in and out, you've never really and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hopefully you can hear me. Okay,
I can hear you.
great. So hi everyone. I'm Elizabeth
Hi.
Ginsburg. I have lived in Brooklyn for about 6 years, but born and raised in Manhattan.
All right.
And
We won't hold it against you.
sorry,
I was born in Manhattan too.
were you? And I work for an affordable housing nonprofit called Enterprise Community Partners. And so that's where sort of part of my, I'd say, land use and community development interest stems from. But, you know, I think also being a native New Yorker, it's exciting for me to be part of this community board and sort of hopefully get to know you all and yeah, have a say in how our community develops and moves forward.
Okay, Elizabeth, thank you very much. I just, because I had it in my mind for months. Every time, either we had a very busy meeting or we have this crazy thing set up. So we finally got at least to know that you're there, and hopefully we'll all get together one of these years.
Yeah,
And,
the first and only meeting that I attended in person as a board member was, I think maybe a week before shutdown. So
exactly, it's just that
strange time.
Yeah. So it's
What neighborhood in CB2 do you live in, Elizabeth?
Downtown Brooklyn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm a downtown guy also, so maybe I'll see you when I'm out. Well, you may not recognize people there right away because we're all masked, but
yep.
Yeah.
It's hard these days.
Okay, yeah, I know. Okay, but thank you very much, Elizabeth. Okay, the last thing we have here is the open, other business. Is there any other business?
I have one item. First item, though, let me just say, is the downtown vacancy rate, I'm told, is at 14%. So while there might be an uptick, there's still a great degree of vacancy downtown Brooklyn. And I don't know whether that counts these new developments that have yet to open. The second item is we all, I believe, got a letter about an approval of an application on St. Felix Street that was done by the executive committee. So the community board's land use committee did not have an opportunity to weigh in. But I think we need to talk about that because there were some concerns raised after the approval was given that the block was not consulted. And for those of you who are familiar with St. Felix going back a couple of decades, the whole block collapsed and the facade of every house on that block had to be rebuilt. That process was in place for several years. They had to build temporary entrances to every house on that block. So that block has a very distinct history. It's also a relatively narrow block. And so there was no discussion, and I did listen to the meeting, although there was no way to participate. There was no discussion of the traffic on the block. There's only parking on one side of that block. The block is a very quiet block, and this is going to change the entire dynamic, even though it's across the street from the Atlantic Center Mall and around the corner from BAM. It is a relatively quiet block. This will change the whole dynamic, and apparently the block was not notified. I said all of that to just preamble that the approval was done without the block being notified that this is a proposal that will clearly impact life on that block as they know it. And we are a community board. We have to reach out to the affected community to make them aware of any major changes that are happening.
Can
Can I
you,
just add some back,
what was,
John?
why
I
did,
just want to add some background to that. Let me add some background. These are what John is talking about is an application at 130 South Felix. However, there were two applications associated with this site. One was a landmark preservation application that got submitted to the Landmark Commission that we didn't weigh upon. The large community did not weigh upon the on that landmark application back in August or back in July. The other part is that this is a ULURP that's coming up, and we don't know how far along. The problem is that when you have two applications, a landmark preservation, and then a year later, roughly, of a ULURP, things get lost in the translation. So what John is talking about, that once that ULURP come before us, now we have a question that the ULURP is going to deal with the zoning, obviously, and the bulk and the height of this building, which really just steps on. Just steps, literally steps on. It's not even a transition. It's a stepping on of the Fort Greene neighborhood. The block that John is making reference to is a R6B residential block. It's right by BAM. There's nothing commercial about it. The large commercial strip is on Handsome Place and on Flatbush or in Ashland, but this is a residential block. So when that comes before us, they're going to be concerned express how that building does not really fit into Fort Greene proper. It eviscerates literally anything that we consider a contextual zone. We fought for a Fort Greene contextual zone. What we have encountered are predatory developers through all the machinations that they can think of to eviscerate a contextual zone neighborhood. They use the MIH, the mandatory inclusionary housing bonus, as a rationale. But to the point where, if you look at downtown Brooklyn and the surrounding blocks, it's nothing but buildings, and it's just eviscerating the residential character of Fort Greene. But that's the problem, and this is going to come before us. And so I asked Rob on an email, when do you think that the ULURP is going to come before the board? He's kind of said maybe in 2021, a couple of, but so the issue again, just to keep people informed that there are two items or two issues. One is the landmarking or the design of the building. The exec committee approved it. Luckily, the landmark commissioners had some questions about that design and they kicked it back. It really, as you know, the landmark does not address Boston height, so that's something else. And as we know, is that although landmarks may approve their portion of the application, it does not presuppose a approval of a ULURP application.
Mr. Gordon, can I make a couple of comments?
Yes, go ahead, Rob, and then I'll jump in.
So when Ernie and I last communicated about the timing of this, I didn't have a precise sense of when this might go through ULURP, and I still don't. But I have a better sense, and that's probably spring 2021. I also wanted to point out that this block is not zoned R6B. In fact, this block is zoned C61, and I actually went back and looked at all the historic maps to try to figure out when it was zoned C61. And this block has the somewhat unlikely distinction of having been zoned C61 in the groundbreaking, if you will, 1961 rezoning. And despite the fact that blocks all around it have been rezoned over time, this one block actually still retains the the zoning designation it received when all of New York City was rezoned in 1961. And then as far as process goes, you know, if a applicant, not just this applicant, any applicant can't get LPC approval for their project, then they don't move forward with their ULURP application, which is a rather expensive proposition. You know, you measure that in tens of thousands of dollars. So while it does have this sort of bifurcated review where first we look at design and then we look at the zoning issues, that's just how it fits within the bureaucratic review of other agencies who have a very singular process, a singular perspective within the larger process.
And I guess yeah, okay, let me just add my bit and then whoever else will take. I should add that I was part of the executive committee when they had that presentation to the executive committee, you know, for us to approve it. I looked at it, and I had some problems with it because it was, you know, it was much larger than the rest of the block, and they were asking, as we know, for the approval as within the historic district, you know, on that block. And I felt that I initially felt that it really should be a smaller structure. We understand that the structure is going to be for the Brooklyn Music School to help, you know, raise monies and will help the kids and so forth. And I think everybody was in agreement with that goal. The problem was that I felt that it was too large, but most of the committee rejected my proposal to cut the building to a smaller amount, and that the committee felt that that we should go with the Brooklyn Music School's proposal, and it went through. Now, again, as Rob pointed out, Landmark Preservation Commission said no, sort of agreeing with me, I think, and that's where we are right now. And I think somebody else wants to pop in on this.
I raised my hand.
Yeah, Judy.
I wanted to know, just to be reminded, why it did not come to the land use committee?
This was during the I think that this was when it was just the regular executive committee. By that time, they didn't. We were out of doing the regular the regular procedure. It went straight to the executive committee. Yeah.
Because of COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
But Carlton, you know, there's nothing that prevents the executive committee or its members to reaching out to members of the board that may be able to add something to the executive committee decision making. I
can sort of hear you, Ernest, but not too well.
His audio's not good.
There is nothing preventing executive committee members from reaching out to board members that may be able to add something to the discussion if they're going to make a decision on anything. I mean, you know, it's just, you can do it, and that wasn't done. Apparently, I understand that during the summer that the executive committee functioned on behalf of the board, and because we voted for that. But still doesn't prevent you from making a telephone call to John Dew or to myself, or anybody else, to get some input on a item that you have some questions about.
Ernie, if I could just build on your point, we have to constantly remind ourselves that we are representing a community. So one of us is not representative of the entire community. We have to reach out within the community to the affected people and take those concerns or recommendations or suggestions into account as we formulate decisions that affect the entire community. And to hear that this block has no sense that this monstrous building is being proposed, and the block is so narrow that it has parking on only one side, it gets very little sunlight. So when you put this building up, it's going to be like that park on Willoughby Street that isn't built yet. That will get 15 minutes worth of sunlight a day.
Oh, terrible.
People don't want people to buy this house
No.
in St. Felix to then be living under shadows all day long.
The problem,
To know
problem,
what's going on.
John, that the community has been supported by every cultural institution in Fort Greene. The community has always supported BAM. They have always supported the Brooklyn Music School as part of the community. You know, and now they say, well, you know, Brooklyn Music School has to make a profit at the expense of the community. You know, there is no dialogue, but this is an issue that's going to blow up when this ULURP come about in the spring. You know, there's a relationship there. You know, whether it's a Zone R6B or a C71, let's get the block and look at the history and look at that relationship. You know, and they have gotten funding through the council. I know BAM gets money from Mary Pinkett through Lloyd Cumbo. I'm quite sure that the music school had benefited from some public funding. You know, and it's a, you know, but it's an issue. But the design is hideous, and it just eviscerates Fort Greene.
Okay, well, I think we had a good discussion on. I mean, we know it's going to be coming at some point, but you know, right now it's not on calendar. But you know, we should, you know, we'll keep it in mind. And of course, community group. If people still have problems with it, you know, they should, you know, they can send their. I think we have received previous letters from community groups along St. Felix, and they should continue to contact us as well as their local representatives.
Mr. Gordon, this is Esther. Yes, can I say one? Esther?
Yes, go ahead,
I don't think
Esther.
this decision by the executive board was made in the summer. I think it was made. It wasn't.
You know, I'm trying to remember exactly. I know. I can't remember the exact time. I know I was there. I know we were. This was one of the last meetings where we were able to do it in person before we had this. So,
but that is a part of the problem. It didn't come to the committee, land use, but it wasn't that. I know the executive board can make decisions in the summer when we out, but this was not in the summer, and it didn't come to the committee. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Gordon?
Yes, go ahead, Rob. Yes.
So it was at the May Executive Committee meeting?
That's correct.
And at the March general meeting, the community board voted unanimously to authorize the executive committee to act on behalf of the full board in the same manner that it does during the summer.
So I mean,
this was because of the pandemic, Rob?
Yes, while the board was meeting virtually and not in person.
I think one possible solution to this in the future is that anything that's been presented to the committee prior to any kind of weird executive action required by a pandemic or anything else, that the committee should have a chance to comment again before an executive decision is made.
Well, in that
I
case,
have no problem with that. I think we should, we really want to get, you know, something of this nature, you know, it should really come before us, even as an informational presentation, as we have today, you know, today on 98 3rd Avenue. It should, you know, it should come and it should be explained. And this way we can get a sense as to what the community really thinks.
Mr. Gordon.
Having said that, yeah, having done that,
because this is an issue that we have from time to time, that we really need to establish a set policy that assures the appropriate communication. We have this discussion, how do we formalize this process so that the next time, unfortunately, this happens, and it's happening now, COVID is increasing all over the city and the earth. We have no idea what next year is going to bring here. But we do understand that we need to get our ducks in a row so that we can continue to do business as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the effective portion determines that we need to do the appropriate outreach. And given that we live in the age of internet, it's actually pretty simple to send a notice out to the committee that something is going to happen and giving everyone on the committee an opportunity to weigh in on it with a time limitation. And this way we can assure that the committee is in the process. But the other piece is that we are always making decisions in areas that impact on other folk. And we don't routinely do any external outreach. We rely on the applicant to tell us all of the outreach that they have completed. And we want to believe them, but do we have a fiduciary to validate that the affected community has been appropriately notified? So I think that's something that we just need to talk about, because for this one, I don't know that anybody on that block is aware of this proposal. Maybe somebody does. I certainly didn't hear that kind of discussion in the committee meeting at which they didn't take any external discussion on that particular project.
We did receive written testimony from people who reside on that block, and all written testimony, both for and against. Some of it was for and against the project, others was more focused on the design, which was the matter before the committee. But in any case, all the written testimony that was received was provided to the executive committee in advance. And I believe Mr. Gordon acknowledged quickly, you might say, but acknowledged that testimony was received. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yep. So
we did, it's, people did come, let's say people, and I don't think does anybody else show up. I can't recall, but we did see letters. We did, both for and against. All right. I think we have discussed this point. I think we're going to try. Try to do this. Hopefully, this will not happen again, or at least not happen. But at least we have a better sense as to how we should, proceed with this. I know I'm going to be bringing it up in future if we have these executive committee meetings and something suddenly comes in at the last moment. I will certainly be bringing it up, and I'm sure Irene will agree with me as co-chair. All right. Are there any other business? If there's no other business, I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
And I'll second it. It's 7:25 p.m. And I thank everybody else for going through this. Is Sandra still there?
I am. It's very late and I was just about to head to bed, but I wanted to see if this was going to wrap up. It's so great seeing everybody. I hope everyone's staying safe.
Don, you have not
Where are you
headed us
standing?
out there.
Are you back?
Where are you?
What was that? What was that?
The charter